Support amongst organizations and important people and community members to really talk about a lot of the difficult issues that are going on in Santa Clarita. And we are at the forefront of not being afraid to talk about those important issues. You know, it's unfortunate that in the wake of a tragedy like last week's increase in overdoses. There were 9 overdoses in a 24-hour or 2-day period, and 2 of those ended up tragically being fatal. And that has really sparked conversations amongst everybody in Santa Clarita talking about, the drug problem that's here and that is everywhere. And to highlight sort of an example of what wonderful organizations we have in the Santa Clarita Valley. The KHTS, Carl and Jerry called us together, and we had a conversation about, talking about this on air, hence this special broadcast. So I really want to give them a great thanks to allowing us to come on and do this. I've been fortunate enough to be out here working in the professional world of addiction and educating the public and going into schools and different organizations for about the last 10 years. And I grew up in Santa Clarita, so, I kind of get it from both perspectives. I'm also in recovery myself, and so I get that side of it. And so anytime we have an opportunity to do something like this, we're going to be all over it and try to educate the public. Ultimately, the solution is for people to get the help that they need, but certainly talking about it and having those important discussions amongst your family members and in the community raises awareness so that people aren't so afraid to talk about it. And if there's anyone out there that does need help, please don't hesitate to contact either us or any other organization. You can call us at 661-296-4444. We are always available. Or you can go to our website. We are at thewayoutrrecoveryscv.com. If any message I could give you on that right there is just reach out to somebody. It all starts with you asking for help or a family member intervening in somebody's life. And again, unfortunately, there sometimes is tragedy that sort of kicks off conversations like that. But any opportunity you have as a teachable moment or a moment to ask for help, take advantage of that opportunity. If you're sitting out there today and you're wondering, what can I do? The thing that you can do is talk to your family members about it or call somebody and ask for help. Back on to the reason that we had called this special broadcast today. We have a couple of very special guests that are going to shed light onto what's going on in the drug scene and why do we get a group of kids who seemingly got a batch of drugs from probably the same connection after talking to them, and all of them doing it and having this increase in overdoses. Why is it that you get batches of heroin that are so much stronger than other batches? And why is it that kids know that this could be a possibility? And I call them kids, even though they were most of them in their early 20s, so not really kids, but certainly kids for an old guy like me. But, why kids will get a hold of drugs like these and know that they're taking the chance and rolling the dice and they are doing it anyway. Addiction is that strong. So we're going to try to answer some of those questions. We have 2 guests that are going to be on with us today. The first of which is Chrissy McAvee, who is a parent and also a mother who lost a son to an overdose several years ago. And as a result of that tragedy right there, has made a stance against drug use and drug addiction and heroin use, has really rallied behind a lot of organizations, has come into Santa Clarita and gone to city council meetings and to the sheriff's station and the school district and said, hey, we need to do something about this. And so I really cannot say enough about Chrissy McAvee and the wonderful work that she's done. And I've had the I've had the privilege, God, I'm tearing up just talking about her because she's just such a wonderful person. And I've had the opportunity to sit side by side with her in some of those presentations. And this is a mom who is just incredibly on fire for helping people. And we can't count the number of people that she has helped. She's going to be our first call in. And then we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Sam Quinones, who's written a book called Dreamland. He tells the story. You know, he's been an investigative reporter and has told the story, spent many years investigating how the heroin arrives here, how it's packaged, how it's sold, why so many kids are getting addicted to it, why it's so readily available, and why really we have such a problem today. And he is going to help. Between he and I, we're going to shed some light on you know, why people are overdosing like they are and why it's so strong in some batches and not in others. Again, my name's Bob Sharits. We have the Way Out Recovery Hour that will be starting on May 15th, and we'll be here every Monday at 12 noon. We are the Way Out Recovery. We're a brand new outpatient treatment center here in Santa Clarita. We're here to help. We are at thewayoutrrecoveryscv.com. Please reach out for help. So our first guest, again, is going to be Chrissy McAvee. I'm going to go ahead and put on some headphones so I can hear her calling in. Hey, Chrissy, are you out there?
I'm out here. Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Boy, we sure miss you out here in Santa Clarita now that you've moved away.
Oh, my gosh. I miss you guys so much. And with everything going on, I was like, what? What a time for me to move.
Well, I tell you what, it's, like I said, it sometimes, unfortunately, takes tragedy for us to start really, really talking about this thing again. And, I asked you to call in and come on the show so that you could sort of recap all the wonderful things that are happening and have been happening in the Santa Clarita Valley, and how that all began.
Okay, well, it all began, I lost my son Trey on March 23rd of 2010. That morning, long story short, I went to the city council meeting to discuss the drug issues in Santa Clarita, and that's really how it all began. Bob Keller was huge, in just really letting me talk, because you have a time limit, but he really let me talk, and Captain Becker was there, and he was the new captain, and so what a night for him to have to come in.
I know, really. Well, I've been to city council meetings, and I know they have an agenda, and they have a very short period of time to present anything. And just to state to the fact that you walked in and you said, "Hey, here's what's going on. My son just lost his life, and I need to talk about this to you guys and see what's going on." And just kind of a shout out, to Bob Keller for saying, "Hey, we are going to change this agenda. We're going to let this woman talk, and we're going to help all that we can."
Oh, without a doubt. I'm so grateful to him. I really am. So anyway, after that, the new captain, Captain Becker, he ended up putting in the J team, starting the J team.
So the J team is the juvenile intervention team. Used to be headed up by Sergeant Bob Walksmith, who's now retired, and Dean Lampkin is in charge of that now. I'm pretty sure, right?
I think it is.
Yep. And Bill Velick and all those wonderful people in the J team.
Yes. Besides the Sheriff's Department taking on a really huge role, Kathy Hunter with the William S. Hart School District made huge changes. It used to be if the kids got caught with a substance or something, they were just expelled from school and they had to go to a different school. Well, that wasn't helping at all. And so Kathy and the school district got the TIDE program going so that if someone did get caught with a substance, instead of just being kicked out of school, they went to a 3-day program put on by the district to actually educate them on drug use and stuff like that. And then they signed a contract along with the parents that the kids, would be at school every day, et cetera, like that. And they did not have to change their home school. That was really huge, and I appreciate that so much.
Right. It's almost like, it's. I think there have been things throughout history where the right bunch of people come together at the right time, and it just so happened that at that particular time, Captain Paul Becker was relatively new. I believe Kathy Hunter, who's the director of student services with the Hart District, was also relatively new, and you had some really receptive people in city council at that time. And when you walked through the door, all of them were really receptive to hear that message and to make some changes and to carry that message. It's a whole lot different. I remember, I grew up out here, and I remember when tragic things would happen in the Santa Clarita Valley, not that anybody would sweep them under the rug necessarily, but they just weren't highlighted and talked about the way that they are now.
Exactly. And, we have to give kudos to our city council and all the major players in Santa Clarita, city officials, because they also, the Blue Ribbon Task Force, did that first heroin symposium, and I think we had like 500 people there, and TV cameras and all kinds of stuff. And that really helped to get out the word. And then also we were able to go to many of the schools in Santa Clarita and talk to the students, which made a huge, huge impact. It was wonderful to talk to those students.
Right. And we certainly need things like that. You never know when a person's going to hear the message. And so we want to be out there talking about it as much as we possibly can, because somebody who has a drug problem, they may not be ready at that moment. But then later on they go, oh, I heard that lady talk in my class, and she talked about calling this place or this place, and it's time. It's certainly time. So,
you know what? I have to tell you, Bob, one of the most exciting or most heart-touching, I guess, times was when I was speaking at one of the high schools, and I did it one year, and then I went back to the same high school the next year, and this student came up after me. And I'll never forget his name. His name was Austin. And he said that after he heard me speak the first time, and the other people that were there, he never, ever did a drug again.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
He hugged me, and we both were crying, and it was awesome. I'll never forget that. That was one of the most touching times of everything I've done.
Well, there certainly are countless people. You can't count the number of people that are helped, because you just never know. You just never know. But out there spreading the message is what we need to do. And we've been talking. We did the Home and Garden show this week. Mark and Brittany and the rest of the Berman family were out there, and we had a booth for the Way Out Recovery, and a lot of people in the wake of the tragedy from last week stop and talk to me about the different things that are going on in the Santa Clarita Valley. What do I'm sure you heard the news right when it was happening. I
did.
Right? And what was going through your head, and what did you think of what happened last week?
Well, it was absolutely devastating, and to have that many overdoses in 24 hours was incredible. But what it did tell me is that there is either a really even more potent heroin, but I kind of doubt that. They've actually been cutting heroin with fentanyl, and that's usually when you have such a high number of overdoses in such a short amount of time.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if if that's what it is. And the worst thing is it's also synthetic. People are making it now, which is like even way worse.
Right.
So it's not something you want to mess with, and it's definitely something you want to educate your kids about.
Well, I certainly, in the aftermath of what happened, I had the opportunity to speak to several of the families and the young men and women who were involved in that directly with some of the overdose kids, and they told exactly that story. They know that it's being cut with synthetic opiate. And so they're more cautious, I think, is what this one gentleman told me. He said, we're more cautious than we ever have been because we know that they're cutting it with this strong stuff. But they're still doing it. They're just more cautious. But there's a lot of reasons why it's more deadly than ever, because we're not just talking about heroin as if that's a lesser evil, right?
I know, right?
But we're not talking about straight heroin, where even though you still can't predict that dosage, it's different than this synthetic thing that they're putting in it. And some of the conversations that I had with various experts tell me that a lot of the heroin out there is not even heroin anymore. It's the synthetic. They're calling it fentanyl, but what it really is people are making it homemade. Whether that's in big warehouses or small garages, they're making this synthetic opiate fentanyl-like substance, and then they are using that because the chemicals are available to make it, and it's so inexpensive to make that they're taking that and selling it as heroin, or cutting the heroin with this substance right here. And so it's kind of common knowledge that that's happening out there.
Well, and you know that the fentanyl, just the regular fentanyl, not synthetic, but the regular, is 100 times stronger than the heroin is.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's as a medicine, as a pain-relieving medicine, which is what any kind of opiate is used for, as a pain-relieving medicine in the right dosage, it can have wonderful, wonderful positive effects, right? People who are in severe, severe pain can now reduce that pain enough to get the help that they need, or even get up out of bed, or get to their physical therapies and things like that to relieve the pain further.
Correct.
But when you take any kind of an opiate, whether it's a synthetic opiate, prescribed or otherwise, and you use it as a means to get intoxicated, now it becomes a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so those kind of drugs, prescription drugs like fentanyl, are designed to be 100 times stronger, so that you need a very low dose, and they can be given to you in small increments, right?
Right.
But that's not how this is being used.
Exactly. So, these people who are using this have no idea what they're even using, to be honest with you.
Right. And I think a lot of, it seems like the people that are regular users in the Santa Clarita Valley are well aware of what's going on with the heroin. However, I think there's a lot of people out there that are still naive to it or ignorant to it. And one of the things about the new sort of society that's using heroin, younger kids, it's more readily available, it's in suburbia areas, you got affluent areas that are using it, it's not like the old days. Back when I was a kid and we heard about heroin, we were like, oh, heck no, we're not doing that, because you pictured a junkie behind a dumpster, dirty, yes, filthy, and that's just not what the face of heroin looks like anymore.
Absolutely, not at all. Right. So, these are our kids, so nobody can say it'll never happen to my kid. That would be the worst thing you could say.
Well, yeah, I think we're beyond that myth at this point. Although I think there's people out there that still believe that. When we talk about drug addiction and we talk about drug use, and especially heroin use, people are still like, "Oh my God, they can't believe it," right?
Yeah, that's what one of my friends that live out there. That's what she was saying, that she can't believe the people who still don't know for whatever reason.
Right.
But,
Right. Well, it's a whole, I'm sure that when your son Trey was getting into it, that, he didn't go into it thinking of the picture that I had when I was a kid of the junkie behind the thing. He started probably as innocently as anybody else did.
Yes. Yeah, he started just with like Vicodin and Xanax and just partying the way high school kids do. They're just using something different now.
Right.
And very highly addictive, and they didn't realize it. I can almost promise you every one of them that got started had no idea they were going to end up this way. None.
Right, exactly. So last minute before we go to break, what do you want to say to anybody who's listening out there in Santa Clarita? What can they do, and what do you want them to be aware of?
Well, I want them to keep their eyes, open and know that this is a problem out there, but also be very proud of Santa Clarita. They have made huge strides. I mean, they openly talk about this. They've helped other cities set up programs, so you really should be proud. And I'm hoping a lot of people will get a hold of you, Bob, and, get the help that they need. Don't be ashamed, ever.
That's right. Well, Chrissy, I can't say enough about all the wonderful work that you've done and are going to continue to do. When I was talking about you before you came on earlier, I started to get emotional and tear up because it's just such a wonderful thing that you're doing out there, and I'm really, I'm sorry that it had to come on the heels of a tragedy, but you have been a pioneer in all this, and your bravery and your willingness to talk about the tough issues has really, really made a difference. So thank you very much. We love you out here in Santa Clarita.
Oh, I love you too. Miss you guys, and I wish you the best. And tell Sam I said hi. I'm so excited he's on there.
I will. As soon as I get him on, I'll tell him you said hi. All right. All right. Thanks, Chrissy. So this is a special broadcast on KHTS. My name is Bob Sharits. I'm with the Way Out Recovery, and we are talking about opiate use in the Santa Clarita Valley. Up next, we have Sam Quinones. So let's go ahead and go on break.